Hi, I'm Ben and I'm alcoholic.
Hi, Ben.
Thanks, Jeff. Um, it's tough to follow up from a man like that and somebody who, to be honest, has changed my life. And I do understand that it's my program, but I couldn't do it by myself. I couldn't do it with the people in this room, and most importantly, the guy who's walking out of the room. But now that he's gone, is it?
Right.
I'm off the hook. Just everybody tell him that I did it, and we're good to go.
You can tell the truth now.
Yeah. So my sober date is March 26, 2024. So just on 10 months, just over 10 months. Looking forward to hitting the year mark, one day at a time. As you can tell, I have an accent. So I grew up in New Zealand, relatively normal life. 5 brothers and sisters. I'm the second youngest. Alcoholic father, 3 brothers, all alcoholic, 2 sisters who are normies, and a mum that's a normie. So it's on the guy's side in our family. Yeah, life was normal growing up in New Zealand. Drunk from an early age, was very common, wasn't frowned upon. Probably 12 or 13, having a beer with my dad at the dinner table. Very religious family, which made getting into the program a little tough for me in the beginning. I pushed away from church. I was forced to go. Wasn't something I enjoyed. I left home at 15. I moved to Brazil. I spent just over a year in Brazil. Had a blast, really enjoyed it, but started drinking relatively heavy over there. Before that, I was, just having a beer on the weekend with my pops kind of thing. But the independence over there allowed me to do my own thing and think I was an adult and knew what was best for me. But came back to New Zealand after that and put myself through college. Studied pretty hard and did my thing. But alcohol was definitely a part of my life. I would go to class, but I would study at the bar. There was a bar on campus, so that made it super easy. And I think from there, I didn't get in any trouble. There was nothing crazy going on, but alcohol was just a part of my life and it was just very normal. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't frowned upon. It was just part of the social setting. I moved to the United States after that with a girlfriend at the time and worked up in Redmond with Microsoft, and life was pretty good. Life was good. I had a good job and we were happy and everything was relatively normal. It was probably, and my story, this is the first time telling my story publicly, apart from to Jeff, so I'm sorry if it's a little mixed up and doesn't stay on the tracks all the time, but I'll try and keep it that way. I think I had been in the US for about 5 years. Good job, good money, nice lifestyle. And I found myself just starting to think about drinking rather than just drinking and just being a normal life. I was waiting for the drink at the end of the day. And I didn't notice it, obviously, right? And it's upon reflection that I start to put these little pieces together of how I got to where I got to. And so I would find excuses to leave work a couple of minutes early to get to the bar a little bit before everybody else, or a reason to go out maybe at lunchtime to meet with somebody to have a lunch meeting, which could go a little bit later, which meant I probably wouldn't go back to the office, which meant I had an hour or two to stop by somewhere to have a couple of drinks before I went home. And it slowly just got worse and worse. I ended up at one point stepping out on my girlfriend at the time, and that was it's very selfish of me. It was very hard on me. I really struggled with doing that. It's not something that I would do. It's not something I'd ever done before, and I was too embarrassed to tell her. So I just slowly withdrew myself from our relationship, and I leaned heavier into the bottle or the bottles, and I ended up telling her that I didn't have any feelings anymore really for her, and breaking up and moving out. And very quickly got into another relationship with somebody who drank just like I did, which meant I didn't have to hide it. I didn't realize I was hiding it at the time, but I definitely was. So it was just normal. It was normal on the weekends to open a bottle and at 9 o'clock in the morning and keep going until, Sunday night, and then back to work, and then work was off, and wherever it was, happy hour at home, it didn't matter. It was a routine, and it was every day. And I wasn't happy. I don't think she was happy either, but I know I wasn't happy. So I ended up walking away from that relationship as well, thinking that it was the relationship, the personal relationship, not the relationship with the bottle, that was the problem. And a very, very good friend of mine, who I had been in contact with since I had been, 15 or 16, she came over from New Zealand. She came to the US, and she said, "I'm here because I want to be with you." Like, oh, okay. So this is different. Here's a fresh relationship, and she's a normie, and maybe this will work out well. And it did. It worked out really well. And soon she was pregnant, and I had controlled my drinking to a point where it wasn't that noticeable to me, which of course probably wasn't from her perspective. But I was nervous and excited about having a kid. I don't have the best relationship with my dad. And I wanted to make sure that my relationship with my boy, my son, was better than what it was, better than what I had, because I felt that my dad had made the mistakes. And so I decided to try to curtail my drinking. And that was my first attempt. And that really didn't go well. I did the, instead of drinking all this amount of beer, I'll come over here and I'll just drink a small amount of whiskey instead. Well, that small amount of whiskey just gradually got more and more and more and more and more and more, which wasn't good for anybody. And so I was able to regulate it again myself after my wife asked me to, and I did for a while, and then it went back up, and then she asked me to stop or to regulate it, and I did. And that cycle went on and on and on. And 5 years later, my wife is pregnant again. So now we have another kid coming. And at that point, she had threatened me a couple of times that I needed to cut back. And I would, again, for a short amount of time. And I would get straight back into it. And it just, kind of like Jeff said, it got worse every time. And every time I thought I could manage it, and I just couldn't. I could, now looking back, I can see obviously the progression and how every time it got harder for me, even though I could stop for a short period, as soon as I went back, it was worse. It wasn't necessarily I was drinking more, but I felt worse. My self-esteem, my pride, the love for myself, the care for myself had gone. And I knew that depression ran in my family, but I didn't think at the time that I was depressed or anything like that. I just thought it was just part of life. And so fast forward through that, through my wife sticking with me, through me being a full-blown alcoholic, trying to keep everything together. I had a very good job. I was president and CEO of a company. I've been there for 17 years, doing my job to what I thought was the best of my ability, which is obviously not very great when you're drinking all the time. Come to COVID, and business shuts down, and I'm left alone at the office. And this is no excuse. This is all brought on by me, but that's when the morning drinking started for me. And my excuse to myself at the time was, you're the only one there, Ben. You've had to furlough all these people. You're the only one keeping the lights on. It's okay to have a drink in the morning. And so that started, and it literally started with, one beer, picking it up at 10 o'clock in the morning, sit in the office for a couple of hours, just staring at it, saying, I'll wait till noon. And then the next week, I'll wait till 11:30, 11:45, maybe. And it just spiraled down and down and down from there. And, we got through the COVID, the business stayed afloat. I got accolades from the board telling me what a great job I had done to keep everything together and to be able to bring back the furloughed workers and all of this stuff. And deep down inside, I was just dying. I had no purpose. I felt like I definitely knew I was failing my wife, and I knew I was failing my kids. And I tried to stop. I tried to stop cold turkey, and that didn't work for more than a day. I tried to cut back, and I still couldn't kick the beers in the morning. I had to have something to get me out the door, something to get me going. And I always had these amazing visions of just stopping and that it would be okay. But at the same time, I didn't know how to function, how to socialize, how to think without alcohol. And it was scary. It was scary for me. And I ended up just slowly pulling myself out of work and just taking taking meetings remotely and like doing the opposite. Like I tried to bring the team back together after COVID and like make it like accessible for everybody, whether they needed to work from home. And yet here I am just like slowly pulling myself further and further away from everything and everyone, from my wife, from my kids, from my work, from myself. And I was in a dark place. I would go down to the Cedar River in Renton, and rain or shine, didn't matter. And I would sit on the side of the bank with a couple of beers in the morning and just think, what if I just like pushed off? Like, I don't want to hurt myself, but like maybe I'd just drift away and like nothing would happen. Or I'd be sitting on the couch at home at night and everybody's gone to bed and I'm sitting there with my drink thinking, I wonder if tonight I won't wake up. Like tomorrow morning, I just won't wake up. And this will be okay. I'll be free and I won't have to worry about like what I'm doing and who I'm harming. And I just didn't care about me, but I cared enough for my family. And maybe I think I was too scared, to be honest. I think I was full of fear. There was no way I could hurt myself, but I just wanted it to end. And so one day after dropping my kids at school, I went to the gas station and picked up a couple of cans and went back down to the Cedar River. And this morning, I didn't open those cans. I just sat there and I cried. And I was at my wit's end. I just didn't know what to do. And I knew that I didn't want to drink, but I didn't know how to do life without it. And I drove home with the 2 cans and I sat at the kitchen table and my wife came out and she looked at me and she went pale. She hadn't seen me drinking in the morning and she asked what was wrong. And I didn't know. I couldn't tell her. I tried to tell her, but the words wouldn't come out. I was lost. And she just sat there with me. And she said, "We'll do whatever you need." And I told her, I need to stop drinking because if I keep drinking, I'm going to die. And she said, all right, what do you want to do? How are we going to do it? And I said, I'm sure there's some easy solutions. And she was like, okay, what does an easy solution sound like? It's like, I don't know, like probably go somewhere for like a week or something and then I'll be okay. She was like, okay, well, let's have a look. And so we started looking for treatment, a place to go to treatment. And everything we found was at least 28 days, which wasn't on my calendar. It wasn't what I wanted to do. Selfishly, I didn't want to go away for that long. I didn't want people to wonder where I was or what I was doing. I didn't want to leave her alone with the boys, which I'd done for the past 10 years anyway. But of course, I was trying to be proud. But anyway, so we found Milam in Kirkland. This was a Monday morning. And my wife called them for me because I didn't want to call them. And they said they could take me on Tuesday, the next day. So I had a couple of beers that night, just a couple. And I went to Milam. And I spent 28 days in Milam. I tried to be the best student I could, as Jeff said. I've I made a decision before going in that I was going to try my hardest. And I'm somebody who typically, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it, and I do it to the best of my ability. I'm not trying to steal the words from AA. And here I am now, I guess. So yeah, 28 days of Milam. One of the requirements or recommendations was to find a sponsor before you left. And so on Thursday nights, there was a group from AA that came in, and there was a gentleman, Nate, who had a story similar to mine. He hadn't lost everything. And there was numerous things about his story that I could really relate to. And so after the meeting, I asked him if he would be my sponsor. And we chatted, and ended up he lives quite far north, and I live down in Renton, and so it wasn't really going to work. But he agreed to be my temporary sponsor until I found a sponsor, and once I was out of Milam. So he gave me a few requirements. One of them was I had to call him the next day and tell him, I think it was 3 reasons why I wanted to stop drinking. That was one of the hardest phone calls I've ever had to make. And it was so silly, but I was so nervous about calling him and telling him why I was in rehab. He'd met me there. I don't know why, but yeah. But I called him, and we chatted, and he agreed to really be my sponsor at that point. And so after leaving Milam, I did an outpatient program voluntarily to make sure that I stayed on track, and I received the help that I needed. And I found a meeting called the Hot Stove in Renton. And thank goodness for that, because that meeting has become my sanctuary and a place where, I don't know, there's just something special about it. The people in that group, it's a I don't know, brotherhood's the right word. I don't know. It's the family. It's we're all different from all different stories, all walks of life. Yet we have that one thing in common, right? We're all alcoholics. And at that meeting, Jeff was called upon to speak. We do a raffle thing. Everybody gets a raffle ticket. If they call your number, it's your time to share. And Jeff spoke at that first meeting. And I was like, here's a guy that I think I can talk to. He's covered in tattoos. He's got way more hair than I do. That's not hard. And so I asked Jeff if he would be my sponsor, and he didn't agree to it in the beginning. He said we had to go to coffee and we had to talk about it. And we had coffee. We had a really good conversation. And one of the things that he said to me that has stuck with me, he said, it's your program. You have to work it. I don't work it for you. And I guess the one thing I touched on in the beginning that I'll talk about. Oh, sorry, I'm running over. Is the part about God. That was the very hard thing for me, growing up religiously and stepping away from the church. But as we know, it's a God of our understanding, and that's what makes it possible for me. That and the people in this room. So with that, I'll end. Thank you.